Vintage ads and American life. Close your eyes for just a moment. Can you hear it? That faint hum of a black and white television warming up in the corner. The static fades, the picture clears. The living room glows with warm lamplight. A father settles into his favorite chair. A mother smooths her dress as she leans back with a sigh. Children scatter across the carpet, giggling, the smell of fresh popcorn drifting through the air. The world feels smaller, simpler, safe. And then, suddenly, the program halts. A cheerful tune begins. A commercial takes over the screen. Today, when an ad interrupts, we groan. We skip it with a click. We barely notice. But back then, in the 1950s and 1960s, commercials were something else entirely. They were part of the show itself. They weren't just selling soap or soda or cars. They were painting a picture of life. A dream of how things should be. I can still remember one of the Chevrolet commercials that defined that era. The screen flickered with the image of a proud father at the wheel, guiding his gleaming car down a sunlit suburban street. His wife adjusted her wide-brimmed hat in the passenger seat. Children laughed in the back, their hair blowing in the breeze. It wasn't only a car they were selling. It was freedom. It was happiness. It was the American dream itself, distilled into 30 perfect seconds. And then there was Coca-Cola. By the early 1960s, a new slogan rang out, "Things go better with Coke." It wasn't just a drink. It was a glass of togetherness. A bubbling symbol of joy that fizzed its way into backyards, school dances, and summer afternoons. A bottle of Coke was more than refreshment. It was a passport to belonging. A way of saying, you're part of something bright, youthful, alive. Commercials like these were more than persuasion. They were reflections. They mirrored the hopes of a nation still fresh from war, filled with optimism, building homes in sprawling suburbs, raising children under the steady glow of a television screen. But not every ad was about cars or sodas. Some were about the rituals of everyday life. Tide, Ivory Soap, countless others, showed smiling mothers beside mountains of laundry. Their secret? A powder or bar that promised whiter whites and brighter days. The father, meanwhile, sat content at the dinner table after a long day of work. We may smile now, even laugh, at how simple and how stereotypical it all seems. Women tied to the home, men tied to the outside world. But for families then, these commercials were affirmations. They weren't just ads. They were a reflection of what society valued, of what was expected, of what many believed was the good life. And then came the jingles. Those unforgettable jingles. By the late 1960s and into the 1970s, commercials began to sing. Plop, plop, fizz, fizz, oh, what a relief it is, chirped the cheerful voice of Alka-Seltzer. They're great, roared Tony the Tiger. And who could resist Ronald McDonald? The clown first appeared in 1963 in Washington, D.C., a local oddity at first, before bouncing his way into living rooms across the nation. By the following decade, he had become a symbol of fun, fries, and family outings at McDonald's. These weren't just slogans. They became part of the language of childhood. You'd hear them on playgrounds, whispered in classrooms, even repeated in office hallways. And decades later, many of us can still sing them word for word, like old songs etched into memory. As time moved on, commercials evolved. But they never loosened their grip on culture. In the 1950s, they were black and white, showing wholesome families in kitchens and living rooms. By the 1960s, color arrived, exploding with youth and creativity. In 1963, Pepsi proudly declared itself the drink of a new generation, the Pepsi generation. It was bold, modern, rebellious in its own way. The 1970s sang with freedom. Who can forget Coca-Cola's "I'd Like to Buy the World a Coke"? A hillside filled with young voices, harmonizing about unity and peace. What began as an advertisement became a kind of global anthem. And then, the 1980s. The age of bold brands and unforgettable moments. In 1984, during the Super Bowl, Apple stunned the world with a single commercial. A gray, oppressive world on screen. A lone figure hurling a hammer. The message was clear: the future could be different. It was not yet "Think Different." That slogan would come years later, but the seeds of rebellion and imagination were already planted. By the late 1980s, Nike struck with three simple words: just do it. Not just a sneaker ad. Not just a slogan. But a cultural spark. An anthem of ambition, energy, and individuality. Commercials were no longer just interruptions. They became events. The kind people talked about the next morning. Punchlines repeated. Jingles hummed under breath. Even the meanings debated. For the first time, ads weren't background noise. They were cultural touchstones. But maybe what makes vintage commercials unforgettable isn't only the slogans or the products. It's the way they stitched themselves into the rhythm of daily life. I can still remember a Saturday morning, cereal bowl in hand, cartoons glowing on the screen, jingles dancing in the background. Or evenings when the whole family gathered for a sitcom, sneaking cookies during commercial breaks. Those ads weren't distractions. They were the pauses of memory. The background music of family life. They were more than selling points. They were markers of time. A soundtrack to an era. They shaped how people imagined happiness. And they left behind a cultural diary written not in ink, but in smiling faces and catchy tunes. Today, ads race across our phones. They flicker past before we even notice. Faster. Sharper. Easier to ignore. And maybe that's why the old commercials feel so much warmer. So much more alive. They told stories. They captured the heartbeat of a society. They reflected joys, dreams, and flaws all at once. And they became unforgettable. So here we are, looking back. If you lived through those years, maybe you still remember the glow of the TV set. The sound of a jingle. The sight of a smiling family, selling soap, soda, or cars. Those commercials were never just about products. They were about life. About us. So let me ask you, which commercial lingers in your memory? Which jingle still hums in your heart? Because in the end, commercials were more than advertisements. They were windows into who we were. And who we hope to be. And as we look back on those golden years, one truth remains clear. Vintage ads never really faded. They live on. In our memories. In our conversations. In the simple nostalgia of a time when even a 30-second commercial could feel like a story worth remembering. And don't forget to subscribe. Because our journey isn't over yet. The golden years still hold countless memories, waiting to be uncovered.